Hello and welcome to VLearn, Virtual Learning Network. This is Session 16 of Human Resource Management, Methods of Appraisal and Feedback. Topics to be covered: Introduction, Approaches to Appraisal, Use of Appraisal Data, 360-degree Feedback, Recommendations for implementing 360-degree appraisal system and potential appraisal. So in this session of human resource management, now we are going to analyze what are the different approaches through which we are going to conduct the performance appraisal system in a very perfect manner. So in this, we were basically considering the approaches, as well as we are going to discuss about the 360-degree method, very detailed, dealing about 360-degree method, how 360-degree performed and lead to the betterment or gives the accurate information regarding the performance of the employees. When it comes to the approaches to the appraisal, we can say that a procedure for determining an asset's value. When it's all about you appreciating or determining the value, whatever assets you have. If we talk about the human resource management, the human resource is all about the assets of the organization, and in approaches to appraisal, we have to value the assets. So we have to value the personnel or manpower which organization have. So the appraisal approach value assets based on the number of factors. Yes, there are a number of factors which help to analyze these values, or we can say that through these factors we are able to conclude that whatever the value we are generating, it's good for organization or not, or what kind of changes we required. So in that case, this is what overall work is done. So the very first thing or very first factor which is calculated in the appraisal approach, that is cost. That means how much expenditure an organization do to have that much of assets. Another is the income it generates. With the help of that assets, how much company is able to generate. So that comes into income it's generate, or its fair market value. That means what is the required market value, what at present going in the market, and compare the assets with your organization. That means what skills you have and what kind of trade is coming in the market, what is exactly done in the market. So appraisal are used to determine the worth of high value assets. Appraisal is always there to determine the value of an asset, to determine the understanding that its value is high or low. So they are usually performed in conjunctions with the sale or at the same time with the insurance purposes. For the results to be taken seriously, an appraisal must be conducted by the individual with experts' knowledge of the assets being assessed. Now, there are three approaches to analyze this kind of value. As we were already discussing that all these factors comes into, yes, these all factors are summed up in the different three approaches. The very first approach is the cost approach to get the appraisal or the approaches to the appraisal. Another is market sale comparisons approach. Another is income approach. So these approaches are based on the three bases of value. When it comes to the cost approach, the value indicated by the recent sale of comparable properties in the market with adjustment of the age, condition and other characteristics. So this is what market sales comparison. That means the comparison of a sale considered taking all the factors on a very constant basis. That means these are all very constant. That is what market sales comparison. Another is the cost of reproducing or replacing a property, minimize the accrued depreciation. That is always lead to have a depreciation in the machineries. So in that case, to minimize this, how much cost at present company have on the assets. So in that case, assets is considered as all the assets which organization have, that is human being, machineries. So that's all comes into the assets. So what are the cost of reproducing, and yes, at the same time what exactly depreciation occurred. And another is the investment value represented by net earned power to the property based on the capitalization of the income stream. So in that case, it is very much related to investment part, how you are going to invest in a very proper manner, in a right property, in a right proper manner. Now, what are the uses of appraisal data? If we talk about the uses of appraisal data, so the very purpose of an appraisal is to establish by an employer. So it's pointed to the information that employer needs to answer a specific question pertaining to the real property. So appraisals is basically established to work on the very better manner and to perform in a very better way. So in that case, it pointed to information that employer needs to answer these specific questions. Yes, there are certain specific questions and employer needs to answer it and give that specific answers. When an estimate of a value is required in an appraisal, so the type of value sorted must be defined at the outset. So whatever the value is defined and discussed, this all comes into sorting that with the outside word. So the appraisal provides a basis of decision concerning employees. So the use of an employee depends on the decision of the employer wishes. Now the 360-degree feedback. And in the previous session, we also have a discussion about the 360-degree feedback. 360 feedback is basically getting a feedback from each and every party whom the employee is interacted or with whom the employee is related. So it is the system or the process in which the employee receive confidential, anonymous feedback from the person who work around them. So that comes into the very first introduction of 360-degree method, that it is very systematic process. It is basically confirming or confidentially keeping all the feedback of the person. So it is what it could be happen with the employee manager also, it could be happens with the peers, it could be happen with the direct reporter, but it's all about to take care of the confidentiality in the feedback. So a mixture of about 8 to 20 people follow out an anonymous online feedback form that asks the question covering a broad range of workplace competencies. So the feedback form include the question that are measured on the rating scale. So that is what the one of the basic introduction of the 360-degree. So 360-degree feedback is basically the online feedback, we can say that, or online feedback method is very much comfortable with the good for the 360-degree feedback method, because we have to collect this feedback from all the messages from the each and every member or related member of that particular person. So it could be 8 or 12 people which is related to the people and they were filling the forms. So the person receiving the feedback also filled out the self-rating survey also. Yes, there is a scope to fill the self-rating part. Self-rating survey was there in which they can judge themselves and rate themselves on the basic areas. And yes, at the same time 350-degree can also be useful in development tool of a people. That is, it's very much towards a useful tool for the people, not in the management role. So it is what, strictly speaking, it's a non-managers kind of assessment. 360 assessment is not measuring the feedback from 360-degree since they are not direct reports. So sometimes it's an actual picture of the 360-degree feedback, that sometimes it's not actually done into the 360-degree scenario. Direct reporting was not there, or we can say that the people are not ready to give feedback very quickly. So in that case, it is non-managers, and 360-degree for non-manager is very useful to help the people to be more effective. So in that case, yes, who are not managers, they must have a good 360 feedback and they get good responses, because at the same time they come to know that the area in which They need to improve, at the same time how they were going to satisfy the company, and yes, at the same time the customers. So it is also to help them or understand them the area they should focusing on, and if they want to move into the management role. So in that case of 360-degree feedback also help them to understand the area in which they are good, and if it's any kind of improvements or any kind of betterment, so that will lead towards the management role also, that they can, on the basis of this, they can be on the promotion on the management side also. So that comes into the 360 feedback scenario. Now company typically use a 360 feedback system in one or two way. The very first way is to 360 feedback as a development tool to help the employees recognizing the strengths and weaknesses and become more effective. So it's always help to increase the strengths and weaknesses of the employee, because it's a feedback from every scenario, and help them to be more effective and more valuable for the organization. At the same time, 360 feedback is a performance appraisal tool also to measure the employees' performance. They also lead them to measure the employees' performance and employees' work. Now, what are the recommendations for implementing the 360-degree appraisal form? When it comes to the recommendation, the very first recommendation is don't force it on a people. Yes, give them a freedom to fill it by their own. The forcing not be there, because forcing was lead to the force choice method also, or we can say that the feedback there is a chance that feedback may not be correct. So the very first recommendation is do not force it on the people. Another is explain what is it, what it does, and how it's used, and its benefit to all concerned continually. So explain that what exactly the feedback is, how it's going to be used, what it basically does, and what are the importance of it, and yes, at the same time the benefits. Another recommendation is emphasize on the confidentiality, because it's a feedback. So you must take care of them in a very confidential manner, because if it's not confidential, so automatically leads to have a more conflicts, and yes, at the same time it may rise the other issues in the organization. Then disconnect its from any compensation decisions. Don't make it as in a compensation decisions like rising or bonuses like promotions and all. No, it's all about understanding the performances of a person in the organization. And yes, provide the information on its purpose and process to be assessor. So provide the proper information. Conduct the structured feedback workshop for feedback recipient. So it should be well planned, well structured also. It leads towards to get the better feedback. Spend time with those people have difficulty with their feedback. So if there was a difficulty to have that kind of feedback, so discuss with them, spend time with them. So that will lead towards the more effective and valuable feedback can be get in 360-degree appraisal system. Another is known to the instrument using thoroughly. Whatever the instrument is going to be discussed, whatever the resources is going to be done to analyze them, and yes, at the same time provide the seamless coordination and support of the distribution and collecting the assessment instrument. So that is what basically related to the coordination part also. It is to support the distribution also, and make sure your vendor provides backup support in the case study or case problems occurred with the instrument or the processes. So it is always there to help us to arrange the backups also, to generate the backups. Be trained in how to facilitate the 360-degree process, how you would going to improve 360-degree process, effectively done 360-degree process, and the mode to it then meets the eyes. At the same time, align your 360-degree process with the organization culture, procedure and practices. Align them, combine them with the particular part. So that is what 360 degrees process. Now what is potential appraisal? If we talk about the potential appraisal is the, we can say that the next step of performance appraisal, or we can say that potential appraisal is only to understand the potential of a person. How much potential the person have, how much hidden talent the person have. Potential appraisal is always done in when there was we can say that the chance of development, or there was a development for the higher position. They are mainly done in the management or managerial areas. So potential appraisal, the work or the main objective of potential appraisal is to judge the potential, whereas performance is more towards analyzing the performance part or understanding the overall performance of the employees. So yes, the person might or may not be aware of them. That is, when potential appraisal occurred, it is not very as such the plannings and the schemes or methods are going to decide. The only thing is decided to analyze that what are the skills, what are the hidden skills that person have, and how the skills going to help the organization. So potential appraisal is a future oriented. Yes, it's a very future oriented. So if there was any kind of future requirement for the jobs or appraising there was a chance to appraise the employee, so who is the better? So future orientation appraisal whose main objective is to identify and evaluate the potentials of the employees to assume the higher position and responsibility in the organization hierarchy. So that is always there. The main objective is to just to identify and evaluate properly the higher position. Whatever the higher position is, what kind of a potential that higher position required, and yes, at the same time how are we going to identify it and evaluate that particular position. And yes, at the same time, when there was this is about the position, so it's all about the responsibilities also, that what kind of specific skills an organization required for that particular position. So many organizations consider and use potential appraisal as a part of performance appraisal also. So it's very obvious you can use it as a performance appraisal, part of a performance appraisal. But yes, these two are very different. Then the purposes of the potential reviews. If we talk about the purposes of potential review, they inform employees of their future perspective. Yes, that is the first perspective. Make them aware or make them analysis about the future. They can calculate, they can understand what are the future perspective in the respective position. Then to enable the organization to draft a management succession programs, to conduct and draft all the succession plans and programs. Then to upgrade the training and recruitment activity. This is the another importance, to upgrade it, to upgrade the training and recruitment activities, improve them, to advise the employees about the work to be done to enhance their career opportunity, lead them, help them, and advise them to improve their chances for the future or the career opportunity. So potential appraisal always help you to understand how much capabilities you have or what kind of a positions you can handle in the organization in a very future perspective, what kind of career opportunity a person can avail. Next is techniques of potential appraisals. Yes, there are many techniques of the potential appraisal. Very first technique of potential appraisal is self-appraisal, when the appraisal is done by the appraisee itself. So that is self-appraisal. Then other is peer appraisal, when the peer groups of a person appraise and gives idea about the skills and capabilities of the person. Another is superior appraisal. It's talk about the analyzing the superiors also. So that comes into superior appraisal. Another is MBO. That is management by objective. Yes, as a potential appraisal also taken as the part of a performance appraisal also. So in MBO we can judge the both. Psychological and psychometer test is another, understanding the mentality and cognitive factors of the person. And yes, management games are also there, how active the person is in the management games, and then finally the leadership exercises. So these are the techniques through which it's easy to analyze the potential appraisals, that what kind of techniques they have. So yes, there are few questions now which you have to do it by yourself. Define the potential appraisals. What are the purposes of potential appraisal? Another is what are the strategies for implementing the 360-degree appraisal system. So this is all about for the today's session. We are winding up here. Thank you so much. Happy learning. We learn.